Welcome back to another episode of the Briefcase in the Barn, episode 37.
Sponsored by Rosedale Tractor.
Okay, sponsored by Rosedale Tractor. Oh, I have some notes here before we get started, actually, on that.
On Rosedale Tractor?
Well, first, questions and feedback. Please keep those coming in. We'll talk about them anonymously at furiouslycurious.co if you want to send it in anonymously, otherwise on my social media. Also, I'm doing a survey for my coaching. If you take the survey, you get entered in to win my 10-week coaching program. So I'll pick randomly. So there's a link in the description of the video here. If you click that link and do the survey, send it in, you get entered in to win. So if you're interested in that, or you could also gift it to someone if you win. And so if you are even interested from that side.
We all know people that need coaching. They need a tune-up from Kyle.
You don't get any tune-ups from me when I coach.
No?
There's no tune-ups. I don't give tune-ups. I just help you see
your issues. Deal with them. See clearly.
Move forward. So
okay.
Anyways, last week we talked about smelling salts. We didn't get to it, but Marie says the energy is low here, so I got some smelling salts that the players use. So.
Well, I should clarify because I left a cliffhanger there with Rosedale Tractor. I talked about how we bought Tech Alliance. It's an auto repair shop in Rosedale. It already had tractor repair. We're splitting that into a separate company here in the next months, and we're going to be selling different equipment like
Schaefer can you talk about the tractor brand yet?
Yeah, Schaefer wheel loaders is one of them. Yeah, there's other ones coming as well. Yeah, we have a couple other lines. It is exciting.
Exciting.
Yeah, we have a fixed chambered round
baler. Who
gets
to do sales for that? That would be such a fun job.
Yeah, Joel Eastwood.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's probably so pumped.
And me, maybe. I mean, I love sales.
You're definitely going to be selling tractors.
Selling something.
Yeah. I mean, it all works together for you, right? Because you got farms, and then you get real estate, and then you got tractors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make money, live better.
You can't make enough money to be happy, though.
No.
No, it's so disappointing. It's so disappointing.
How did you like the sermon on greed? Did anything speak to you? You asked me about it a couple of weeks ago, but I asked you.
My wife asked me when we got home. Yeah, how could I?
Like, do you feel like you're always trying to get more and more and more, or do you find yourself more just like, hey, I've been given these gifts, I'm trying to be faithful with them? And
I mean, the thing is, generosity is not about giving a lot of money, right? Generosity, actually, the true generosity to me would be, first of all, I guess it's all heart based. So like where your heart's at, but in terms of monetary amount, it would be very much, feels very weird giving a sermon holding smelling salts in my hand. It's like a little doobie or something. Anyways, I used to smoke a lot of pot when I was younger. That's why my memory's bad. But or it's because I'm a Beekman, one of the two. Beekmans have horrible memories. Mine's go very young. I'm just trying to like really use my brain right now while it's still working moderately well. But the whole greed thing is like, hey, you're not, unless you're sacrificially giving, you're not being generous, right? To some degree. It's like this idea of like, oh, this guy gave a big check. Well, like he's worth 50 million. Like who cares if he gave 300 grand? Like it's not a big check. Like that's just, there's people that are literally living hand to mouth in our church that are tithing, that are just like really can't afford to tithe, and it's humbling, right? Yeah. And I have seen that in a little bit that I don't see anything at our church who gives what, but just in my life as an entrepreneur and just seeing how people, it's humbling to see how people give people that don't have a lot, right? And I think because they probably haven't had money grab a hold of them the way that somebody maybe that has some level of, I think like there's this idea of when you're in this, upper to middle class, which is where a lot of our culture is now. They weren't when they immigrated, obviously. Like my dad was telling my son stories the other day about his parents when they immigrated in the 50s and how poor they were and renting for years and years and so prudent and saving up their down payment and barely getting by, right? And it's interesting because now we've entered into a period, and this is what I think is really unfair for people in our generation, is that we have been in my working life in the last 20 years, anyone that was prudent, right, got left behind by governments printing money. And so it really bothers me because I'm thinking, hey, everything that you were taught to do in the 70s, 80s, 60s, whatever, going way back, all these people like, Marie's grandma who's 89, rails on about, the early days and save your money. Well, you could not save enough money to become financially well off in the last 20 years. You just got left behind by everyone that borrowed like crazy and bought assets, right? Yeah. And so we're having a bit of a correction of that now, but I just feel like on the sense of generosity for me, it's way more, I struggle with entitlement. I struggle with the idea of, hey, like,
what about like
driving a nice truck, or just the idea of like, hey, I can eat out here. I can do like, am I willing to get like Marie challenged? Are you willing to give those things up, or you think you deserve that? Or even going on a holiday, it's like, hey, it doesn't need to be perfect. Like those types of things, when I say that, I cringe internally. It's like, I want it to be perfect. Right?
Yeah.
it's a horrible way to live. And it's like, no.
What about like the pastor said that usually rich people, when they get rich, that's when they become even more greedy. Like they want even more than it cycles, it gets
So
worse.
I don't feel personally, I know a lot of people like that. I haven't felt that that's been my struggle as much. I feel way more convicted about the areas in my life where I find comfort in the fact that I'm okay financially, and it's BS. If you think about Job, like I always think about Job, gone in an instant, right? And that could happen to me.
Yeah.
And it might happen to me. And like what I ask myself is, and when I'm sitting in that sermon is like, I ask the Lord, would I be as happy and joyful and generous and caring for others and wanting to help others if I had almost no means myself and I was barely getting by and I was, milking cows for someone else and just,
I think it's possible that you'd be more happy.
Are you just thinking I can't be any less happy than I am now, or?
No, well, no, I have my own experience.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't that like a big extreme. I didn't lose a whole bunch of businesses or something, but like definitely went to like nothing and like was really struggling.
You weren't less happy.
No, because at first I think I've talked
your personal life was in shambles though when you were well off too. So that.
Yes, but when it started getting better, like I didn't have the money to go look at like what truck to buy next month or next year, or what property to go look at, or what thing like what vacation I could go on. And so I didn't spend time looking at those things. So I just had like, not always wanting more because it wasn't even an option. Couldn't go out as much, and so I would spend way more time at home with the kids, and which was way better for them. Like they don't always need to be entertained to death. They just
they don't
time.
need anything. They actually literally just
Need
my kids
time
have
with
the
you.
most fun just doing very menial things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard to get that through.
And so it was better for the marriage because I wasn't always escaping. So like I think there is an aspect of like, hey, when you don't have a lot, you don't have to worries of like where to spend the money, like what to go do, like entertain yourself to death.
Everything you have owns a little piece of you.
Yes.
And like it is bizarre.
Yeah. Anyways, we're gonna move on to smelling salts. Snap this thing and then just take a whiff. That's how you do it.
My sinuses are pretty plugged. It
It'll
won't
help.
matter. It'll clean them right up.
It'll clean it right now. Ready?
Okay, you got it. I'm gonna let you do it first. I'll do it after. So I can
No,
see
we can
what
do it at
looks
the same
like.
time. This is
Well, I
bullshit.
just don't know exactly what to do.
You snap it, like sprint like this.
Okay, and then go.
Yeah, snap it.
Okay. Son of a beater. Yeah, ready to go score the overtime goal now. Son of a gun.
This room is gonna be smelling.
Oh, that's bad. That's so funny. I always wonder what those players are doing on the bench there. Now I know. I have a whole unique experience watching a hockey game. That's funny.
Last week we ended the show with you asking me a question.
That's weird segue. That's a bad segue.
We have to.
We have to get to it. We don't want to forget it.
That's right. You asked me, what do I say when people ask me if I have 3 kids or 4 kids?
Well, or just even just your emotional experience now. You just had a baby a couple weeks ago. I'm thinking, hey, it's like,
Yeah.
How are you?
So Oliver is the name of my
fourth child.
4th child. We went to the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning. They brought us to the room. You're not crying. They brought us to the room of where Grace was born. My daughter that died.
Oh,
Same room.
okay.
Yeah, no idea.
Okay.
And
Okay. Is it odd or is it God? I always say.
I always,
Yeah.
I looked at Nicole right away as I walked in the room, like, which room is this? She goes, yeah, I know which room it is. And we held her there, and she was as small as Oliver was.
She was stillborn, right?
She was stillborn
Okay.
at 38 weeks.
Okay.
38 weeks. And it was definitely when I was holding Oliver, the last couple of days, I'm like thinking about Grace a lot, like, because she was that small, and it just, I don't know. And also, like, I was thinking a lot, like, we didn't know if it was going to be a girl or boy. So, like, you were thinking of, like, having another girl, like, just kind of thinking about Grace. And
Yeah.
I don't know, you just think about it. You
didn't know if you're having a boy or a girl.
No.
Okay. What do you think about people knowing ahead of time?
I don't care. If you want to know, you want to know. If you don't, you
Yeah.
don't. Like, I like the surprise.
Like surprise. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, and if people ask me, like...
I always find it interesting, right? Because for us, it's like we were somewhere yesterday morning. Maria and I can't even remember where, but it was like somebody said, "Oh, we were just talking. Oh, is that church actually? 6 kids, right? One wonderful new couple. Maria was just helping them get checked into kids' church, and the lady's like, "Oh, wow, man, you've carried 6 kids, right?" And then we just kind of use that opportunity rather than like tell them way later and make it awkward. We always just correct people and say, "Actually, our kids are all adopted, and one of them's not ours. Our 6th one's not our kid." And it's just fascinating how, yeah, you just miss this whole experience of, you know, not, especially for Marie, I mean, way less for me, but just the idea of like not carrying babies, not having your genetic, quote unquote, genetic makeup. I mean, I always find it interesting looking at our kids because I never look at our kids and be like,
Did you know that you're adopted?
you're not like our kid. Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, man. Have you met my parents? Actually, it's
You know what I
funny.
mean,
My
though,
dad,
right?
but no, I know what you mean. I know where you're going with this. I was just, my
Like-
parents listen to the podcast, right? So I just got to throw the odd shot at them. Like,
But I mean, like, with the genetic makeup, like, it's a beautiful thing to think about. Like, we're
is
adopted
a
by
beautiful-
God, and
yeah. Yeah. And our kids are, they're processing, and we talk about it all the time. And
good.
we let them talk about it. And it's really fascinating having some of our children have full relationships, like open adoptions, right? Where they have relationships with their birth parents, one of our kids. Other kids, their birth parents aren't doing well. Some of them, like one of them, their birth mom has passed away, and we know that. And then another one, we don't even know who her birth dad is, right? So it's just this like, yeah, the myriad of emotions. And we always tell them, like, we have those questions that we ask after dinner, right? That I've talked about, those 200 heavy questions. And the other day, one of them was related to that. Like, hey, what do you think about that'll bother you in the future? And it's like, hey, you can talk about, you just process it in our family. I mean, I pray that our family would be a safe place where you can ask the hard questions and struggle with
I'm
stuff.
reading a book right now called Finding My Father.
Okay.
How to Deal with Fatherlessness by Blair Lane. Amazing book, but she didn't grow up with a very absent dad. She was on the other side of the country, I think, and then she talked to him like once or twice a year. And then when she was like 35 or something like that, she found out that who she thought was her dad was not her actual dad because she did like a test or whatever. And she found out it was another guy. And but she just talks about like the importance of dad and the impact of dads and how to like recover from it. But there's just like, even if you're having like an absent dad that was physically around, but that, you know, wasn't there for you, like it's a really, really good book. Highly recommend it. Finding My Father, Blair Lane.
Blair Lane. Okay. Total rabbit trail, but just made me think of something else. A plug for another podcast if people are listening to this is The Overcomers. Matt Chandler does a podcast, and I listened to one recently about a lady that struggled with same-sex attraction. Just a great podcast in general. Lots of great episodes. So, and Matt Chandler was recently on Matt Shantz's podcast, on the Deep Thoughts podcast.
Okay.
That's a great podcast as well, especially for those of us that have listened to Matt Chandler's preaching over the years. But anyways, are we going into the book study?
Yeah. Okay, guys, moving on. We are reading Gentle and Lowly, The Heart of Christ for Sinners and
Kyle's on the
Sufferers.
schedule. Okay. To the utmost. Chapter 8.
Yeah, chapter 8, coming from the verse, he always lives to make intercession for them, from Hebrews 7, verse 25. And it starts off with this little introduction of what this means. One of the most neglected doctrines in the church today is the heavenly intercession of Christ. When we talk about Christ's intercession, we are talking about what Jesus is doing now. There has been a remarkable recovery of the glory of what Christ did back then in his life, death, and resurrection to save me. But what about what he's doing now? For many of us, our functional Jesus isn't really doing anything now. Everything we need to be saved, we tend to think, is already accomplished. And so it kind of goes into that he's making intercession for us now. And there's this piece, this other next chapter, part of the chapter that I'm going to read. But do you think about, before I get there, do you think about that quite a bit? Like that Christ is currently praying for you and making intercession for you? Or is it more just like he has saved me in the past and presently not really thinking about it too much, that he's like praying for Gary going to the podcast today? Like he's actively...
I probably just don't think about it enough in general. I don't know if I'd have a really strong opinion on it. I mean, I probably land somewhere in the middle. So like I got a book recently about intercessory prayer, and like there's been like these types of conversations have come up more just because some of the kind of people that I hang out with probably think are much more in tune with this type of thing. And there again, it's about the bent of where people land, where they're reading scripture, right? Depending on where they would land on these.
Yeah, what
things.
sermons you're listening to.
Yeah, I had a really. I'm just gonna read one part on 78 here. I thought I had it hyper starred.
Okay, I have something hyperstar that says read twice. Same piece.
Part of it. You read way too long. You're just turning into the reading.
I'll read it. But our hearts are wired in such a way that we
too much.
constantly drift from a moment by moment belief in full exoneration. That heart resistance to complete acquittal before God based on what Christ has done became codified in medieval and then Roman Catholic theology. The reformers such as Luther and Calvin recovered and rightly re-centralized the doctrine of justification. Every generation since then has had to rediscover this doctrine afresh for themselves. I think that's really important.
This next line is the part that
It is the most counterintuitive aspect of Christianity that we are declared right with God not once we begin to get our act together, but once we collapse into honest acknowledgement that we never will.
It's the most important line in the whole book.
Yes. It is the most counterintuitive aspect of Christianity that we are declared right with God not once we begin to get our act together. So for anyone listening, but once we collapse into honest acknowledgement that we never will.
Yeah. So interesting side note on this, and it's because it's not just, it's everybody struggles with this because it's counterintuitive. And there's somebody really close to me in my life, and Marie's and I's friend, and she has this with her non-Christian friends now, right? They know very little. They don't understand the gospel. They probably haven't ever even had it explained to them well. They're in the process of having that happen through this lady. And they all think, oh, this girl, she's a good girl. She's a Christian. She's a good girl. Like, no, that's not how it works. And so we're doing a disservice in our communities while we're walking this way is like not, it's, and I believe it's because we as Christians do not share our sinfulness enough. We do not share our brokenness. We do not share how we struggle. We live a facade, and it's not doing a favor to unbelievers. It's not doing a favor to anybody, right? And
or
it's
ourselves.
not even, it's not even right. I mean, God would just call us to be honest, right? Yeah. And I just think that idea there again, back to how I kind of felt growing up. It was just this idea of like looking at people that were the Christians. I'm putting quotations out for those that are listening to this, right? Like the believers, the saved. And they were just looking a certain way, doing a certain thing. And yeah, most of them were probably sincere, godly people. But the idea of like, they never shared about their struggles. They never shared about how they wrestled with their assurance. They never, and I'm sure they did. Like, and now looking back as a guy is 40 something, I'm like, so I just think, boy, can we just share that and say, listen, it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, we all have doubts, we all struggle with we don't all, I struggle with unbelief, let me speak for myself, right? I struggle with assurance. It's like,
I think it's also so important for leaders to show this as an example. Like there was a couple of weeks ago at church, there was an event on Friday evening and all day Saturday called Counseling in Communities, and it was teaching about how to counsel and love people.
Yeah.
And there was opportunities for people to share, and one of the elders in the church shared that he was struggling with lack of forgiveness for a family member. And just for like there was, I don't know, 75 people in the room. He didn't know these people, like they're just from the church. And he was openly sharing that he had a lack of forgiveness towards somebody as an elder in the church. And I was just struck by that. I was just like, wow, like how often do you see church leaders doing that? Like just openly sharing their struggles. And I think it's just where we're all on the human being tour. Like you don't have your, all of a sudden you have your crap together if you're in that spot, and people need to hear that it's like, it's all Christ. It's not like that you're now stronger, better, but so it's that, I mean, that little part was more justification, but this chapter is more about intercession. So what is he doing now? Talking about Christ. We don't have to speculate. The Bible tells us he is interceding for us. Justification is tied to what Christ did in the past. Intercession is what he is doing in the present. And talking about what Christ is doing for us now. And then at the end of the chapter, it says, one way to think of Christ's intercession then is simply this: Jesus is praying for you right now. It is a consoling thought, wrote theologian Louis Burkhoff, that Christ is praying for us even when we neglect it in our prayer life. Our prayer life stinks most of the time, but what if you heard Jesus praying out loud for you in the next room? Few things would calm us more deeply. So I think that is especially like, think about that. Like literally, if like he's in the next room when you're in a business deal, or when you're like in a hard conversation with your wife, or like your kids are doing something you can't do, or something is happening at church that's terrible. Like
I feel it. Even my wife, just the amount that she prays for me and lets me know she's praying for me when I'm having hard conversations or meeting people. And it's like, yeah, to think that the Lord is doing the same thing. I had another, just part I was going to just quickly read. I don't know how much long we've been talking about this. I always feel super sensitive.
You read way too much.
I read way too long a piece. That's so boring, Gary. Can't stand it. We all say we are totally forgiven, those that are Christians. We would say that. But there's one deep, dark part of our lives, even our present lives, that seems so unattractable, so ugly, so beyond recovery. To the utmost, in Hebrews 7:25 means God's forgiving, redeeming, restoring touch reaches down into the darkest crevices, the places where we are so most ashamed and most defeated. His heart willingly goes there. His heart is most strongly drawn there. We cannot sin our way out of his tender care. And most people don't believe that. My experience is that most people don't believe that. They live with deep shame. They do not feel fully forgiven.
Yeah.
I mean, that you really experience that in Freedom Session. And unfortunately, only the people that are even willing to start looking at the stuff even get there. Most people just don't go there because they have a sense of what they might have to deal with and don't want to deal with it. Their spidey sense is going off, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the final line in the book, in the chapter is, our sinning goes to the utmost, but his saving goes to the utmost. And his saving always outpaces and overwhelms our sinning, which is biblical. It says that, even though it does, we don't feel that way, right? Because we look through our own human perspective, which our grace is so conditional, our forgiveness is so conditional to people, right?
A couple months ago, I was talking to our buddy Mike, and I was saying to him, I was just
Dutch Mike?
No, Mike Elder. He's not Dutch, is he?
No. Wishes he was.
I should have him on and tell his
Wishes
story.
he was.
His story is crazy.
It is crazy.
But anyways, I was talking to him, and I said I was just done. I was just really tired. I was just like I'm done crying out to God. I'm just. And he said to me, he goes, I wrote it down. He goes, God knows when we've been on our knees long enough. Like we don't. If we're in a super hard spot right now, it's not because he doesn't know or is not allowing it. Like he knows, and God is allowing for it, and he's trying to teach you something, or there's something else going on that we aren't aware of. And are you going to trust him? He knows if when you've been on your knees long enough, keep going to him. He knows, he cares. And I think that's just an amazing gift of the gospel. We're going to move on, and we're going to watch a reel. And we're going to react to a reel about the love of God from Alistair Begg.
Okay.
So
the religious person views God not as a father, but as a boss. If you view God as like the boss, then the only way that you're going to be able to make it is to keep obeying the commands, hopefully making the boss pleased with you. And what that inevitably does is it creates phenomenal anxiety. I don't know if he's pleased with me. I don't know if God is pleased with me. How can I know that he's pleased with me? So anxiety on the one hand, and then anger on the other hand. Because in my self-assertiveness, I'm tempted to believe that I'm not getting what I deserve out of this program. I tried to be a good person. I started to go to church. I actually began reading one of those through the Bibles and so on, through the New Testament in a year. And here I am. Is that not because you don't understand who God is? You see, when God is your Father, then all of that goes away. That's why Jesus says elsewhere, if you being earthly or evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Heavenly Father give good gifts to them that ask him? Only Jesus is qualified to set us free. Only Jesus sets us free from the settled habit of rejecting his wisdom, rebelling against his authority, enthroning ourselves. But if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed.
the gospel.
Yeah, that's a good quote. Good quote. Sometimes I remind especially my one child of that, but all of them, where it's just like, that's why it's very prevalent to me, because it's like, I'll be doing some disciplining or correcting. There'll be like a lot of bad behavior, frustrating behavior, annoying. And then I'll be like, hey, it's tuck in bedtime. And I'm like, just so you know, like, no matter what, you are fully loved. You are fully cared for. You are special no matter what, no matter how much trouble you're getting in at school, and no matter, and that, I feel like they need that reminder, because kids are sensitive. Our kids are sensitive. Yeah. They feel like, hey, they'll even articulate now at 10 years old. It's like, oh man, you're ragging on me, man.
Yeah. But I also think it's, if it's just our words, that how much we love them, and it's not backed up by actions, that's also pretty damaging, because then you get a really twisted view of what love is. Like, if most of your interactions with your kids is disciplining, and it's not like lifting them up and giving them physical affection and spending time with them, then first of all, their behavior is probably going to get worse, right? Like, if you're not loving them and caring for them, and so you're going to have to discipline them more. So it seems like they're actually worse when what they need is a hug. They need love. They need time and attention. And so, yes, tell your kids often you love them, but back it up with the behavior that shows it, because otherwise you're giving them a bad view. Like, as dads, we're called to be a picture of what of what God is as a father, right? And that's often what our own view is of God is, our own dads. And so
it is. It's one of the sessions. Yeah. It's one of the sessions, right?
Yeah,
it's all about that.
Yeah, mercy and grace. Okay, what else you got here, Gary?
Oh, I was going to give a little bit of a real estate update, at least from my perspective. It's pretty interesting. It's like this weird time of,
Before you do that,
yeah.
it makes me think of something else. Someone else reached out to me and said, I wish I could call into the podcast live. What do you think about doing this thing live? And then we just like record it and it's just live and people can call in while we're recording.
We could try one like that. See if anyone would.
Yeah, because then like real estate questions or whatever, anything else, people can come in and call in. And
Let's do that. Let's count on doing that in like the second week of April. The recording in the second week of April.
we'll figure out the date because I don't know how much work it's going to take or money to set it up to do that. But
It wouldn't take that much because they could just literally call one of our phones. We'll just do it. Hey, Mickey Mouse. We don't have to get all carried away, right? We could just literally have them call the phone.
oh, that way.
We could have it
I was
scheduled,
I was
right?
talking live that it's like live on YouTube and on Facebook while we're recording, like 100% live.
Oh, I don't think we would do that.
Why not? We're going to do a live event. That's going to be like that.
We would maybe do that, but I mean, I'd be hesitant to do that. We got a few sabotagers out there, right? They'd come after us.
How could they sabotage us? We don't have to pick up the phone.
Start asking ridiculous questions, right?
I'll just move on. Or we can have someone screening. There's ways to do it. Anyways,
Okay.
that was
Total
something
aside.
about-
Total
yeah,
aside. Anyways.
Okay, real estate update.
Yeah, I was just
This
gonna.
is going to get published in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we are recording a week early. But anyways, it's just an interesting market. There's I predominantly do farms, but I also do a lot of residential, commercial stuff too, just small stuff or people just buying houses and that. And like I tried to put an offer for someone twice now in the last week. I think I might have shared about one already where there was, 11 offers. Yesterday again, I put an offer in for somebody, no subjects, cash offer, over asking. Somebody paid way more. There again, it's specific. And it's just a weird market in that there's pent up, there's definitely buyers in the price point,
Yeah.
but they're not aligned. So like, you see all these detached homes for $1 million, 1.1, 1.2. Now, just for those of you listening, this is in Chilliwack, Abbotsford market where, there's definitely homes selling for $1 million. If you're in the 800,000 detached market and it's a nice home, it's selling right away. If it's 700 in a smaller house, it's still selling. Like the one we put an offer on was in the 600s, tiny house, weird shaped
Crazy
lot.
because people in Alberta or other
Are
places
scratching their weary head wondering what's going on.
You're like, I'm not moving there.
Yeah, I mean, I do have this belief in business and in real estate in general is that you are better off to overpay in a very desirable spot always than get a deal in an outlier area. Like a lot of times people, like
Okay,
I've
but
seen
but
it.
if you're 20 years old and you're making 90 grand a year.
Yeah, you're not going to buy a house in Chilliwack, but I'm just saying you also don't want to go into a weird spot, like even in this area, don't go to an outlying like Hope.
Okay, yeah,
Because you'll overpay in Hope.
yeah, oh, that's right, yeah.
Right?
You have
Like,
to
you would
move,
still
you have to
be
move
better-
to Alberta. You have to move
And
to
then
somewhere
find
else.
a desirable area in Alberta and just pay a lot of money in that spot and you'll still be protected over the course of time. People don't realize that. There again, obviously
I
not
see what
everyone
you're
wants
saying.
to live in an urban area, but I'm just saying, as opposed to living in the sticks out in like way south of Fort McLeod or something, which is fine if that's where you want to be. But I'm just saying value wise, you would still be better off buying right in Lethbridge or
Value-wise,
right
in a way,
in Calgary.
like that in terms of like,
being protected long term.
okay, being protected long
Because
term.
people that come from our area tend to go to like Salmon Arm or East Coast. I've seen it many different times and they overpay, right? Because they're going to a market they don't know
Yeah.
and they're coming with a lot of money. And the realtor that is in the new area sees someone coming from the West Coast and, oh, everything's cheap here. Well, and it happens where all of a sudden you have to sell again in 2 years or you know what, you made a deal with your wife where one of you, you're trying a place
So
for
what
a
you're
season.
saying is in your geographical area of 100 kilometers or whatever, like get
Buy in the
the-
expensive spot if you can afford to.
Yeah.
If you can't, totally, right? And,
and
you're still
you're saying that as to protect yourself long term. But if you value being in the sticks,
remote, that's fine.
or whatever,
But the pool is so much smaller of people that want to be in the sticks that when you sell, you can own something for like, I think I shared this story and maybe I haven't, but like I bought a little commercial property with Steve, buddy who I work with, we're partners. Like we bought something in Quesnel. We bought it 2 years ago or whatever. We paid exactly the same as what it sold for in 2007. So it's like,
I did the same thing. I bought property in Fort McLeod, commercial property, and I sold it.
now the cap rates are high, the returns are high. If you go to like
Yeah, the
up
rent return-
there,
the rent
the
return
rent return
versus
is
value.
great. Yeah, like
Yeah.
we were at 10%, like it's a fat cap rate. But that's all you're getting from that thing. It's not going to go up 5 times like something in the Fraser Valley might, right? Now, in this same market where I'm talking about multiple offers on houses, there's a lot of people that are in deep trouble. There's foreclosures. Like the number of foreclosures is climbing. In Ontario, it's really climbing. In BC, I feel like we're a little more protected. I feel like there was more speculation in towns like Brantford and, all these.
Way more people in Ontario,
GTA. Yeah, but just a lot of weird stuff that happened in real estate, right? Just pure speculation, right? And people just paying insane amounts of money in a brief window of time. And there is like a lot of, like I watched a marketplace, CBC Marketplace documentary a while ago on like the fraud in the mortgage industry. And like, obviously most mortgage brokers are not doing that, but there are some that do. And that creates people buying things that just should not be buying things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways.
Okay,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna wrap it up here. Anything else you want to say? That
Is this a short podcast?
no, we're at a half hour already.
Okay. Yeah, you got an important meeting to us.
This Saturday, the 5th, my podcast with Matt Keynes is coming out,
Okay.
and it is dynamite. And so if you're listening to this, definitely check that out. Coming out this Saturday.
Another important thing.
Yes.
Today, because this is April
2nd.
free dinner, Heritage Park,
Oh yeah.
Beekman Auctions,
Yeah.
Lord willing.
I really enjoyed working for
I
you
always
last
feel a
couple
little
days.
weird doing prophesying about the future on this podcast, but
We're talking about how like I'm working for Gary for 2 days, so that would have been yesterday and the day before. So
yeah. Anyways, that's what I mean. You want to be a little careful, but the plans of men
yeah.
are what they are. But anyway, so yeah, feel free to come out to Heritage Park, eat dinner on Beekman Auctions.
Yeah.
The auction closes tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this on the Wednesday.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, check out the survey link in the description of the podcast here. Take that survey, get a chance to win. Awesome program, and good feedback as well there to give. So, thanks for listening, guys.
Have a great week.